Farm Ed podcast. Today I'm joined by Amy from Redwoods Farm in Devon, and we are going to be talking about poultry, setting up a new enterprise and direct selling. So thank you, Amy, for joining us today.
No worries.
What I'd like to talk about first is, how did you get into poultry? Why hens?
So I got my first hens as like a, so there was like a tenner project basically in school, and you were given £10 and you invested it, and then you basically got a return. So I thought, cool, let's go into hens. So I got like some ex-factory hens for like £1 each, and yeah, went into that. So I did then have just like free range hens, and then had fox issues, so became a bit less free range. And then so then I started looking into like how other farmers were doing poultry, like pasture poultry, and I thought, cool, how does this work for me? So that's kind of a brief
history.
Yeah.
And how many chickens have you got? Well, how many hens have you got now?
So I have got just over 200 laying hens. That's something that's building up quite quickly, because I've just started supplying a farm shop, and they're selling pasture-raised eggs online, which nobody does. So so that's a fairly rapidly growing market.
And one thing I love about your hen enterprise is the house, or the houses, and how you keep them. Can you explain a little bit about the design?
Yeah, so the first chicken house, the very first chicken house I made was, it was based off a guy called Justin Rhodes' design, Chickshaw it's called, off of the rickshaw.
Yeah.
So you could fit, I think it was about 30 chickens, 20 or 30 chickens I put in there. And so that one you had to move by hand. It's got wheels and you just pulled it along. But then I moved on to like a old caravan and converted that, took out the floor, put a mesh floor so that the droppings just fall through, put in perches, nest box, feeders, and then I did the same with a livestock trailer as well, an old livestock trailer. And now the next plan is to, so I've just bought a couple of trailers that we use to transport helicopter blades around like army bases. So they are going to be transformed into chicken eggmobiles. So they're kind of, so the current trailers can fit about 50 birds in each. So as you can tell, that's more hens, like not enough for the amount of hens I have. So they're currently in a polytunnel, because we use polytunnels for our broiler chickens. So one of those is now being used for the layers at the moment. So while the trailers are under construction.
Yeah, it's so interesting seeing all the different designs, isn't it, that people have come up with, how to keep them, and so they're easily movable, you can keep moving them to fresh pasture.
Yeah, for sure. Like, the like ex livestock trailer and the ex caravan, very cheap to buy. You don't need to spend a huge amount on building houses for your chickens.
Yeah, and because obviously you need them to move, don't you? Because that's how it fits in with your farming system. So can you say a little bit about how the hens fit in and what benefits they bring to the farm?
So my hens follow the cows around the pasture. So because they're on wheels, you can just hitch them up and move them wherever. They've got like electric netting around the house basically. So I don't find it very difficult to move, although there seems to be people saying it takes a really long time to move. Although it's probably ingrown by the time you if it's left there. So because I move them 3 times a week, so it doesn't grow in, and also because they're going after the cows, then the cows have mowed down, so it's not shorting out massively, like I've heard a lot of people have issues with. But they tend to just follow the cows around, scratch around the dung, eating parasites and eggs and larvae, and then also they obviously fertilise the land. We haven't used any like artificial fertiliser in about 5 years, so that's really good. Sort of in line with when we started doing pasture poultry. The eggs are so much nicer. You get this really lovely orange yolk. It's not. So people like to describe it as a yellow yolk, but actually it's so deep orange. It's orange. It's not yellow. Yeah.
It makes a massive difference, I find, in sponge cakes. So,
Yeah.
I once had to make a wedding cake for someone, and I used some of my own eggs, which were like really golden orange, and then I ran out, I had to get some more from the shop, and then it was one of those naked wedding cakes, and it was so clear.
Oh no!
Which eggs have been used in which layer. But I mean, showed the point.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's because of the grass they're eating, or...
Yeah, it's definitely... So there's, it's carotene, it's called, in the grass.
Okay.
And that's what makes the eggs so yellow. And so when you look at it from a meat chicken's perspective, that's what makes their fat so yellow. So they've got yellow skin and their legs are really yellow. Yeah. And also it's quite helpful when telling if a bird is not laying. She has really yellow legs because it's going into her legs rather than her eggs.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I didn't realise that. I'll have to keep an eye on my chickens and see which ones aren't laying. And as well, so you've got the laying hen enterprise, and then your parents have a broiler enterprise as well. Could you tell us a bit how that works?
Yeah, so they run them through, it's like May till December, although we get like one batch left beginning of January. So because it's seasonal, obviously it's interesting finding customers to, you know, but so that's the kind of thing you need to really work on relationships for that. But so they basically started out 4 years ago. Somebody was looking for soya-free chicken and no one was doing it. And so Dad's been thinking about adding in, because he's been looking at, we all started looking at the same time at like American systems of pasture poultry following cattle, and so he's been thinking about doing that for a while, and then this seemed the perfect opportunity, because if they weren't going to have soya, the extra nutrients that they needed could come from the pasture. So he spoke to various feed companies, specialist poultry ones, and they said no, we can't do soy-free mix. And then spoke to our local feed mill, and they said yeah, we'll give it a go, which was great. So they came up with a chick crumb mix and a grower mix, and so they decided they were going to use the chick crumb, and we did a couple of batches where they had chick crumb all the way through, just mixed with a little bit of wheat towards the end to lower the protein. But it's expensive. So then we kind of, at that point I just started doing making my own pig feed mix, and so then Dad kind of thought, well, let's do that for the chickens. So they now have, when they're older, they get a quarter of the chick crumb just for the nutrients and all those added benefits, and then they get 3/4 mixed, which is wheat, rapeseed meal, beans, and peas. Yeah. So yeah, it kind of has worked out much cheaper doing it that way.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting. So obviously we've run the pastured pigs and the pastured poultry courses here at FarmLed, and just hearing the different ways that people are managing to cut soya out of the diet and source their feed more locally as well, because your grains are all local, aren't they? Yeah,
so 85% generally of the diet comes within 7 miles of the farm. Although actually for the chickens it's within 5 miles. It's just depending on where we can get it from. We were hoping that we could get peas grown locally as well, but that crop kind of failed this year. So that's something that hopefully in the future. At the minute our rapeseed meal comes from a farm in the north of England, but we're kind of in conversation with a farmer in, I think it's Cornwall, so much more local. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. And with all this sort of thing and talking about different feed mixtures and different ways of doing things, how have you found sort of getting advice from other people and that sort of knowledge transfer? Have you found there's quite a good community there? Yeah, definitely. There's like, you know, WhatsApp groups, Facebook, you know, it's like, and it's such a it's a community where people want to learn and want to share as well. And I kind of have a policy of being as open as possible, in the hopes that it then encourages other people to be as open as possible. You know, I've been asking people questions that you wouldn't normally ask, you know, about like financial things as well. So I think it's fair to then
be as open with what I'm doing. Although a few people who I've asked have been fairly cagey about their answers, so yeah, kind of wanting to change that.
It was really refreshing you sort of showing all your financial data, because something like, if you want to run an enterprise, that has to be financially viable for it to be sustainable, doesn't it? So it's really nice that you could share that, and that other people could be like open about what they're doing as well, because some of these things, some ways of doing it aren't profitable. You can find other ways that are. And it's looking at those ups and downs. And talking about that, it's quite easy to talk about these things from almost like an Instagram perspective, but I was wondering, what have the challenges been? What sort of challenges have you found along the way? And then also, what are your successes too?
So one of the two of the photos I put up were chicken houses blown away. Our polytunnels that we raise our broilers in, which get moved every day, by the way, I'm not sure if you know. So because they're like mobile and they have to be light, so the wind, we can get them when we're in quite a windy spot, so you have to pin them down. I think we've had 3 instances of them blowing across the field. 2 of them, it was okay. I mean, there was a little bit of damage, but we managed to get around that, fix it. But yeah, the latest one is kind of a little bit destroyed, which is, So, I mean, the first 2 instances were where we literally didn't know what we were doing, and they were, it was all in like the same, I think might have been the same day or something like that. So, and it was really sudden like wind direction change, so, and then this one, it was pinned down and it was just bad placement in the field, I guess, so.
Okay. It's
just like thinking ahead, really.
Is that learning as you go along, and what's the weather forecast?
It sounds horrific, and like, it's kind of an embarrassing thing to admit to, but if, like the whole openness thing, if we're going to show our mistakes, then hopefully it won't be made by everyone else. And I've never had a hen house blow away before, except a hen trailer blow away before, except this winter, like I think it was just before Christmas, just went down the field and into a ditch. So, but the hens were completely fine. They were just in there singing away at the bottom of the ditch, looking at the stream running below them, and let them out, and they just carried on as if it was a normal day, and egg production wasn't affected. So it's all just
it's an extra bit of excitement.
They just carry on as if it's normal. Another thing is like customers. That's obviously. So something that I'm not particularly good at is completely sounding like I have faith in what we do. So I really believe what we do is really great, but I'm not too good at expressing that to potential customers. So that's something you really need to like back yourself in believing what you're doing is right. So we sell most of our eggs and chicken through wholesale. So maybe that's where it works better for me, because they get to big me up rather than me doing it myself. So it's just it's difficult finding people who you can have that relationship with, and it's quite interesting. So the people who I trust to work forwards with, they're talking about how we both can grow, and they're talking about, when they talk, it just immediately includes you both. There's no like, we're going to do this and you're going to, it's we are both going to do this. And it's quite clear to see who's invested in what you're doing as much as themselves.
So do you do some direct sales?
I do some, yeah. So I do an egg delivery round. And so because we do meat boxes of beef, lamb, pork and chicken as well. So sometimes they ask for a meat box, and that can get delivered as well then. I also do farmers markets, so that's selling everything. And I've also started doing a few pop-up shops, which is quite cool to meet lots of local people who appreciate you being there. I have a website and an online shop, which I probably need to put a bit more effort into.
Well, it's these things, it's the starting off, isn't it? And then working out time-wise, how it all works and things like that. So For anyone that's thinking of setting up their own enterprise, I'd be interested to hear what you think, because I remember you saying that actually you were told by your parents that there wasn't space for you to be on the farm.
Yes.
And kind of proved them wrong a little bit there and got yourself in. So it'd be interesting, firstly, to hear how you did it, and then any advice you've got for anyone else thinking of doing the same.
So how I kind of got into it was slightly by accident. Basically, I did an internship at the farm which hosts Groundswell, and I had to come home early from that because, well, I got injured playing rugby, and then I came home, and then so I was stuck at home because of COVID. So, and then while I was home, I was like, oh, let's get some more pigs. Oh, let's get some more hens. So basically, my hens don't actually take up any more space than what we're currently using, and in fact, they actually add to, because they're fertilising, they're improving the soil. So actually, I don't pay anything to keep them on the farm because they're benefiting it. And then I've just got a small amount of space for the pigs as well. So that is now building up, using like rented ground as well, and also a bit from my parents, which I rent from them as well. But yeah, it's kind of all about finding things that you can integrate into other enterprises that are already there. Because we are literally two businesses, but we work together. And so I also handle like the direct sales side, and also I talk to like butchers and farm shops who are buying our produce. So I handle that side of things as well. So yeah, it kind of it's two separate things, but we're together, and it makes sense once you start doing it. But yeah,
and they complement each other.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
And there's definitely more ways in which they could complement each other. So that's things like we're working on. And I kind of see it as that we're always building on what we've got. So I think that's probably... There's ways in when it doesn't seem like there's a way in. So it's just... There's something... Yes, exactly. There's something you can do, even in not a lot of space. So you can have, there's like people doing market gardens in really small areas, and you can have chickens on that as well, or like even a pig or two. There's things you can add in not what seems like a lot of space.
Because we've been talking a lot about integrating today, haven't we? And actually how you can sort of put another enterprise in or something else in, and then that can actually benefit the land, and then it can carry more. So.
Yeah, for sure.
That's such a good idea. It's seeing what's possible and speaking to other people and finding out what they're doing as well.
Yeah, there's like things that I've seen other people doing, and although that doesn't directly relate to what I'm doing, I can pick bits off which do relate to what I'm doing and work it into how it suits me.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You don't need to copy someone exactly.
No.
It's just picking out the bits that work.
Yes, exactly.
Lastly, I'd just like to ask if people would like to find out a bit more about Redwoods Farm, what you're doing, where can they find you?
So I've got an Instagram and Facebook at Redwoods FM, and it's X, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just confusing myself. Yes, which is at Redwoods FM as well, and my website is redwoodsfarm.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Amy, and I hope we see you again soon.
Yeah.